we believe that our budget, this budget passed by the legislature, which is now the budget, is responsible and balanced, and crucially, our numbers are supported by the nonpartisan Office of Legislative Services, which has an unparalleled track record of accuracy over the years. I think it's important to note that. When I say it's nonpartisan, it also means that is a body that works for the entire legislature and doesn't report to the Assembly or to the the Assembly Speaker or the Senate President. Our budget, it's important to remember that our budget funds most, if not all, of the governor's priorities and expands on our commitment to New Jersey's most vulnerable by keeping our promises to support fully homestead rebate for seniors and working class families, and by providing money for affordable housing, for cancer care and other items that were not included in the governor's budget. Bottom line is this. The legislature has fulfilled its constitutional obligation and duty to send a balanced budget to the governor for his signature. Before passing that budget, we went through the budget process as we have for so many years. And Budget Chair will be here to speak about that in just a little bit. We've had dozens of meetings, talked to hundreds of New Jerseyans, and have put together what we believe to be a sound and strong budget for the people of New Jersey. It's never been our job to accept the budget that the governor has presented to us and to accept it without change or modification. I don't know that that has ever happened. It's our job to review it and to set forth those changes which we think reflect the legislative belief for the upcoming year for New Jerseyans. And that's exactly what we did. We did our due diligence, and in the end, we produced a responsible, balanced budget that we can be proud of. We believe in the numbers in our budget, and we believe that while we'll continue to listen if the governor has something to say, that the budget that was passed by the legislature is a budget that people can rely on and that we should move forward with as in the coming days.
We've had over 36 hearings. We've listened to people from all around the state talk about what's important to them and things that they would want to see funded in this budget. We took a lot of that into, obviously, what we created as a budget piece. We also did a lot of work in going through audits and really combing through some of the departments. So I think that I'm a little taken back sometimes by some of the words that were being used. We were here to perform hard work. Budget members on both sides, not only on the Senate side but the Assembly side, give a lot of their time and their effort in being here and really being able to prepare themselves with questions for the commissioners and listening to the people and what their concerns are. So I don't think that we're down here doing any idiocy of work. I think that we're here really to do the people's work. I think that we were elected to do a job, and that is that a lot of the things that we really see in this budget are a lot of things that the governor requested. I think that the main issue is obviously how we get there with the revenue raisers. But it's been a challenge in seeing what the real difference is in what OLS has scored and what the treasurer has scored. So hopefully we can have a little bit more insight as to where the major gap differences are. I think that I'm proud of what our House has done and the work that we have done with our members. And being able to come to a document that I think really translates into taking account of what the people of the state of New Jersey have requested, and that is they do not want to be personally taxed anymore. We've worked hard also with the corporations, not to say that all of them are happy and screaming and saying, yes, this is the best thing, but I think that they also understand that with the federal changes, how it would impact them and how maybe helpful they could be to the state.
Learned a incredibly unforgettable, valuable lesson after September 11th when I was coming in as the new chair of the Budget Committee when Governor McGreevey was elected. And I watched a former administration overestimate and puff numbers that were beyond explanation, that had been warned by the Office of Legislative Services, and walked into a crisis on a much smaller budget, somewhere around $24 billion at the time, that we had to close $9.3 billion over a 15-month period. And I learned that day that the reliability of OLS as our independent branch of government, as a nonpartisan agency, as the credibility with which they brought, and as a young man at the age of 33 at the time, chairing what I think is one of the most important committees, if not the most important committee in the state, because every government program we do runs through that budget committee, to make sure that we relied on numbers that could be verified for us. The people that work at OLS, they have preceded my career, and while I have more years behind me in my legislative service than I have in front of me, I just said this to our caucus, for the people that will follow the Speaker and myself in our roles, to rely on the independence of that branch is critically important. Treasurers in New Jersey are appointed by the governor. They report to the governor. They work for the governor. OLS does not work for the Democrats. They do not work for the Republicans. They work for the legislature. I have had numerous conversations. Many of you have heard me talk ad nauseum on conversations around taxing systems of other states and what we should be following. I don't go into those discussions willy-nilly. I've had lengthy conversations with OLS where they've disagreed with revenue projections, but I have debated them intellectually, where I have gotten to a point where they've been able to prove their numbers to me in a way that are verifiable. Many of you will remember a few years ago when Governor Christie came up with a plan to find $300 million in managed Medicaid. There was no quality metrics, there was no medical codes put in place, there was no roadmap for healthcare and changing the healthcare delivery system. OLS warned us at the time that the number was fictitious, it couldn't be proven. OLS turned out to be right. One of the things that the Speaker and I hope to ascertain in our ongoing conversations with the front office is we are willing to have a conversation, but we cannot solve a problem together unless we can agree on what the discrepancy is between us and them. We have to stop debating over what numbers are being certified, what are not. We have to have a conversation about if they disagree and will not certify the revenue numbers on the corporate business tax, why, and what is their disagreement with the number. We worked with the business community. We didn't pull a number from the corporate business tax out of our hat and say this is what it's going to generate. We worked with our friends in the business community. They brought in financial experts from around the country that represent businesses that do work in every state in the country. They shared with us input on what would be generated, what has worked in other states, what has helped drive business in other states that chose this model versus the combined reporting. We've worked with these individuals for years. We worked with them on the Transportation Trust Fund. We worked with them on the tax reform from that measure. We trusted those organizations and those advocates, but then we verified it. Well, we have a long, decades relationship in working with these individuals. We took their information and their data, we brought it to OLS. OLS had questions. At first blush, OLS didn't agree with the numbers. We then brought experts in and sat down together so that we could explain the formulas and the metrics and how we got there, and we ultimately arrived at a number of $805 million. That's how this process works. But at the end of the day, I have told my friend, the Speaker, that I would stake my professional career on the certainty of OLS and their numbers. I have done it for the last 18 years. I'm very proud of the relationship that I've developed with this organization under people like Dr. Rosen and throughout time. And I believe the professionalism of that office is remarkable. And I would say to you that getting an understanding around these numbers are critically important. Because what we have done with this budget, once you get to the numbers, is agree in large part with the policy and the principles that we share with Governor Murphy. The Democratic budget that we passed through both houses of the Assembly and the Senate is a reflection of our core democratic values. It includes school funding for over 100 school districts throughout the state that will receive an increase. It includes, and we are very proud of this because we did this every year with Governor Christie and unfortunately saw him year after year veto out, fully funding the pension at this year's phase-in at $3.2 billion. And a key principle and priority of our Speaker is to restore the funding that was cut by Governor Murphy for the homestead rebate. 75% of school districts today receive less in school aid than they did in 2010. We included an increase of $283 million in state aid to those underfunded school districts and almost $60 million in a pre-K expansion program. We've added $1.35 million for court-appointed special advocates who advocate for children who may not have a voice in the legal system. Anyone watching the national news today should never minimize the importance of that investment of money for children who are not represented. And we don't know if some of those children that are going through this federal national disaster are not being flown into New Jersey and dealing with the same issue. So we are spending $1.35 million on court-appointed special advocates. We're spending $3 million for anti-violence out-of-school summer youth programs in Newark, Trenton, and Patterson. We just saw this past weekend in our state capital what police believe might be gang-related shooting which injured 22 people and left 1 dead. We're restoring $15 million in cancer programs and research to ensure and advance cancer care and treatment throughout the state, $2 million to the New Jersey State Commission on Cancer Research, $10 million to the South Jersey Cancer Program, $2 million to the Cancer Institute of New Jersey colorectal and lung cancer service expansion, and $1 million to the Cancer Institute at University of Hospital to identify why in Newark we have the highest ranking of skin melanoma of anywhere in the country. We're restoring $1 million to the New Jersey Nonprofit Security Grant Pilot Program, which provides funding to organizations throughout our state at high risk of terrorist attack, and $8 million in funding being restored for reentry programs, helping to remove barriers to employment and housing for those who have been incarcerated. These are highlights of many things that the budget process led by Eliana Pintor Marin is a painstaking, tedious process that for me was one of the most rewarding of my career, where she has had, between the Senate and the Assembly, over 30 meetings, meeting with advocacy groups from across the state, north, south, and central, representing tens of thousands of New Jersey's residents and understanding the impact that our budget has on the people that we represent. The role that the state legislature plays in this process is critically important and should never be passed over as an independent branch of government. The process has created a better budget for New Jersey residents and New Jersey taxpayers.